this right here, mi hermano, this is where the fun begins. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is finally time after decades of waiting for this shit to drop. Obi Wan Kenobi has hit Disney Plus. We have 2 episodes, so let's start off with episode 1. This breakdown will include spoilers, so go watch the episode and then come back to the video. The main job that this show had to accomplish in the first episode was set the tone for the entire project and give us an insight into the mental state of our main man, Obi Wan. And Deborah Chow did not come to play any games because this is gritty, fantastic, and Obi Wan is a broken man. First off, getting the technical stuff out of the way, everything looks beautiful, everything sounds amazing, but somehow, some way, this feels like a well-lived-in world that we are starting to explore again for the first time. We know the characters, we know their backstories, we know what's gonna happen in the future, but still we are intrigued at every second along the way. The highlights acting-wise were Ewan McGregor and Vivian, the girl that's playing Princess Leia. Honestly, this show started out in the best way possible by giving us some context through an amazing recap of all the movies that have come so far. It's very prequels focused, which is great because this is the Obi Wan Kenobi version that we know. It's a disgruntled, decayed Jedi Master who has gone through a lot, especially during the Clone Wars. His master perished and left him a Padawan for him to take care of, and then his ultimate demise comes at the hands of his best friend. Not only do we get to see Obi-Wan experience those PTSD moments through his nightmares, the first shots of the episode are literally Order 66 at the Jedi Temple in Coruscant. I know, we've watched it a ton of times before, but watching the 501st Legion go absolutely ham on the Jedi Masters at the temple will never get old. Gritty, action, fast-paced, it was the best way to start, honestly. Fast-paced action fueled by a little bit of foreshadowing, because if you see closely, one of the Padawans that is in the first shot of the show turns out to be the third sister Reva, which we see later on in the episode. Or at least that's what the internet thinks, and from me watching the episode, that's what I thought as well. Now, what exactly has Obi-Wan been up to in the past 10 years since the ending of Revenge of the Sith? Well, he has been cutting up fish in the desert like he's a sashimi master chef. Ewan McGregor's acting chops are in full display here. We already knew he was going to be facing the ghost of his past, but not at this scale. Remember, the Obi-Wan that we saw in Revenge of the Sith and in A New Hope is totally different to the man that we have right now. It is a darker, haunted, more disillusioned version of the Alec Guinness version that we see in A New Hope. And while it does take a lot of personal sacrifice, we see him upholding his promise to protect the one and only Luke Skywalker. And trust me, he needs a lot of protecting because what comes next is insane. Most of the first episode takes place in Tatooine and, surprisingly, Alderaan. We get Obi-Wan dealing with his life as a hermit in the Tatooine desert. It is immediately established that he is cut off from the Force because he's trying to reach out to Qui-Gon Jinn and he's not getting a response. Sidebar, that thing right there lets me know that there's going to be at least some indication that Liam Neeson is going to be appearing in the show or his voice is going to be heard talking to Obi-Wan. But I think it's going to happen after a moment of emotional and physical distress, either after facing the third sister or the fifth brother. Besides Obi-Wan being overwhelmed with loss and grief, he is also carrying the burden of immense responsibility because he's taking care of Padme and Anakin's child, at least on the sideline, because Owen shows up and he is not happy seeing Obi-Wan try to gift a starship toy to Luke Skywalker. And then is what shit starts to hit the fan because we see the introduction of the Inquisitorius. We see the Grand Inquisitor, the third sister, and the fifth brother come into the Tatooine to try to lure out Obi-Wan from hiding. Granted, the main person that is looking for Obi-Wan in this case is Reva. She doesn't give a logical explanation in this episode or the second one, but we can only guess that it is because of the first scene that we saw in the episode. It looks like she was one of the younglings at the Jedi Temple that was then abducted by the Empire and then thrusted into the path in the dark side. I mean, if you look closely at the dialogue, she's being shunned by the Grand Inquisitor himself because she technically came from the gutter, meaning that she came from the light side to the dark side. With that being said, she is very ruthless, but she does not have her Sith eyes yet. So I'm guessing she's gonna be trying to break that mental, physical, and moral compass, kind of like in the way that Kylo Ren did in The Force Awakens. So they interrupt people walking at a cantina and they actually lure out one of the hiding Jedi that is actually in that place. Somehow, plot convenience, he manages to escape and then he tries to search out for Obi-Wan. And in this conversation in the desert, we truly get to see that Obi-Wan is absolutely lost in the sauce. Even though a fellow Force user, a fellow Jedi is asking for help, he's like, bro, the war is lost. Just go home, get to the desert, and bury your lightsaber. Which is exactly what he did. And then we get the big question of the day. What happened to you? Grief, loss, and a sense of guilt will tear a man up for 10 years. Trust me. Pero papi, we know in the end that this is not gonna be a crying fest, and something has to move the plot forward. In this case, enter Princess Leia. We are immediately thrusted to Alderaan to see the most important part of Star Wars lore, at least so far in the Star Wars Disney Plus shows, which is the development of Leia as a child. Keep in mind, most of the stuff that we learn about Leia has been been from the comics and the original trilogy. We didn't get to see much of Carrie Fisher explore the Jedi ways, if at all. We simply saw her as a master near the sequel trilogy, but that was near the end of her time as the character. In this case, we see her grow up as a child and become a diplomat and a leader under the helpful guidance of our main man, Bail Organa. I have to say, the new droid called Lola is instantly one of my favorites. She's quirky, cute, and she helps Leia figure out herself as a child growing up in a uber-advanced diplomatic sanctuary known as Alderaan. Through a family meeting and some social events, we get to see that this depiction of Princess Leia would have made Carrie Fisher proud. I think Vivian was a perfect casting, and she portrays Leia as she usually was in the original trilogy and in the sequels. Stubborn, cunning, funny, and extremely intelligent. So far, she is the emotional linchpin of the show, not Luke, and I think this is a great decision. We have already explored Luke Skywalker and the male side of the family for a long time. It's time to give Leia some of the flowers, you know? Episode 2 does take this in a little questionable manner, but we're staying in episode 1 right now. We see a cute little bonding moment between Leia and her father, Bail Organa, after a failed social experiment. Essentially, Princess Leia was supposed to be happy and funny and a good host to her step-cousins, but she is not going to be taking that sass around here. So she let the man know what's up. But then, as if by clockwork, everything starts to go awry, because Princess Leia ends up getting abducted by some bounty hunters, who are obviously trying to use her as a lure to get to Obi-Wan, because Reva, obsessed as she is, put out a bounty for Obi-Wan's head. And this is where Obi-Wan has to make a decision. Is he going to risk the safety of Luke Skywalker in Tatooine in order to help Leia? Or is he going to contend to the status quo? Yeah, there's not much to think about. Our boy is on the case. This scene had me on the verge of tears. I felt like a kid again because Obi-Wan went to the desert and dug up the 2 lightsabers of the most powerful Jedi in the galaxy. He's got his own and obviously Anakin Skywalker's. Episode 2 could only be described as a rescue mission, but I'll cover that in a whole separate episode. Episode 1 hit exactly the right beats that I needed it to do, setting up the tone, the plot, and giving us a compelling reason to rediscover all of these characters. Through this project, we get to see all of the characters feel like they're part of an interconnected web. They may have appeared at different moments during the franchise, whether it be the original trilogy, the Disney Plus shows, or the prequels, but they all serve a specific purpose to tell a new, compelling story. Nothing felt extremely unexpected because we know what the final story is going to be for each one of these characters, but it still felt new, which is impressive to see. Now, enough of the heroes, let's talk about the villains. I haven't seen enough from the 5th brother, but as most of the internet already let you know, Reva is being painted as this annoying brat. She is obsessed with finding Obi Wan Kenobi by any means necessary, and she's actually willing to disobey the Grand Inquisitor in order to do it. Remember, at this point in the saga, the Empire doesn't have a totalitarian reach over the entire galaxy yet. That still takes a couple of years for them to fully accomplish. They have the full might of the Senate to combat if they have to make some really sporadic decisions. So, besides Darth Vader, the Grand Inquisitor is the closest in the Sith totem pole as we are going to get. There are some questionable uses of the Force, and that is all that I like to see, some dichotomy and duality between the Sith. After spending much of our time during the Book of Boba Fett in Tatooine, I would have wanted to have the first episode kind of set somewhere else, but it makes sense since Obi-Wan has set base up in this planet. But overall, it was a beautiful way to start, and I can't wait to tell you about episode 2. So if you want to see that breakdown, make sure to like this video, share with your friend, and subscribe with the notification bells on so you can get an instant notification whenever I post a new breakdown or whenever I go live. If you want to see more of my content, make sure you check out Tropical Joe Gaming, which is my second channel focused on all things video games. And if you want to see me stream a little bit more, Tropical Joe VODs is going to be the house where all the streams are built. As always, mi familia, thank you guys so much for the support. Just crack a smile, be a nice person, just ride the wave, and I'll see you on the next one. Blow!